A child in a wealthy household grows up quickly, but not because she is smarter than others, rather because she simply has less time for innocence. In this house, one learns the weight of words too early. One catches intonations too early. One notices too early that love can be conditional, that affection depends on behavior, on conformity. She sees her father enter the room, and the air changes. People straighten their backs, conversations fade. He does not shout. He almost never raises his voice at all. But his approval is rare, and his disapproval is felt physically, like cold. He is not cruel. He is practical. He has built within himself the conviction that the world is a system in which everything must function. Her mother seems like the complete opposite. Music fills the space where her father uses speech, yet even in that musicality there is distance. The piano stands between her and her daughter more often than embraces do. Music becomes a way of speaking instead of touching. Beautiful, correct, but cold. And the girl learns the main skill of her life: observing, remaining silent and recording the world inside herself. She sees what adults look like when they are not allowed to make mistakes, what women look like when they are valued for beauty and nobility. She sees, and already knows, she does not want to live that way. But she does not yet know how to live differently. She is sent to learn the proper things: manners, languages, dance, everything that turns a girl into an ornament, everything that does not create a voice of her own. And the more perfectly she performs, the less space is left for her. Take note of this paradox. The more perfection is expected of you, the less you are allowed to be alive. Cinema becomes her window into a forbidden reality. There, people make mistakes, fall, love in ways that are messy but real. There, women are not only beautiful, they are dangerous, funny, reckless. There, one can be not a daughter, but a destiny. And each time she returns from the movie theater, it is as though she puts her gloves back on, carefully, precisely. But the skin beneath them begins to itch. The dream demands release. And that is why the conflict with her parents is not an outburst. It is an accumulated bill, hundreds of small things, thousands of unspoken "you must not." And when all of this breaks through, it is no longer possible to speak quietly. Arguments become inevitable. Her father cannot understand. Why destroy something built so perfectly? Her mother fears disgrace, a word in this house far more terrifying than pain. For them, their daughter's escape is not a drama, but the failure of a project. For her, it is the only way not to disappear. And when she leaves, it is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of self-preservation. She does not feel like a heroine, more like an amputee, cutting off part of her past in order to survive. The theater school is not romantic. No one waits for you here. They test you. No one is impressed by a last name, because last names mean nothing here. They look straight into your eyes and ask a simple question. Did you come for this, or to play? She stays. Take note. This is the first place where her real freedom appears. Not in the scandal, not in the escape, but in work, in discipline chosen by herself. She studies not because she must, but because she simply cannot do otherwise. Her beauty begins to work against her almost immediately. People mistake it for emptiness, for a shape without content. But the body never lies, and directors feel that. Her movements are too precise, her pauses too intelligent, her gaze too aware. They give her roles cautiously. They test her. And every time there remains a sense that she delivers more than they expect. And then comes that one film, and the moment when she stops belonging only to herself. Here ends the path of searching, and begins the path of irreversibility. The film is released quietly, without fanfare, almost unnoticed. No one expects an explosion, and that is precisely why it happens. The viewer sits down in the theater seat unprepared. He is accustomed to the rules. The camera slides away, the body is covered, the gaze turns modestly aside. He is used to the idea that sensuality must apologize for its existence. But here, nothing of the sort. The camera does not look away, and she too does not look away. In her gaze there is no challenge, no flirtation, no calculation. There is only presence, complete, unconcealed. The kind that makes one uneasy because the viewer suddenly realizes she is looking at him the same way he is looking at her. This breaks the balance of power, and this is precisely what provokes rage. You must understand, the scandal is not born from nudity. The scandal is born from the fact that the woman on screen does not ask for permission to be herself. She does not submit to the gaze. She endures it. And by doing so, she deprives the viewer of his usual sense of superiority. The newspapers go mad. Headlines scream. Some demand bans, others demand trials. The film is cut, mutilated, hidden away. In some countries it is banned entirely. In others it is shown underground. But bans serve only one purpose. They create myth. Because punished art always becomes more desirable. Her name begins to live separately from her. People speak it as if they are afraid, as if it were a word that cannot be taken back. Women whisper about her, with admiration and hatred at the same time. Men look at her as though they are seeing not a person, but their own forbidden impulse. And she realizes for the first time how unprepared the world is for what it has created. What matters is this. She did not seek scandal. She did not play at revolution. She was simply honest. And honesty in polite society is the most frightening vice. And the farther she goes, the narrower the path becomes. Each next step is interpreted. Every movement becomes a statement. She finds herself trapped in her own image. Now people expect either new audacity or repentance. Remaining just an actress is no longer possible. And that is when they appear. Men for whom she is not a person, but a project. Some want to save her, others to possess her, others to punish her with love. Most dangerous of all is the type who offers protection. Money, peace, status, a promise to free her from scandals and loneliness. He seems like a solution. He is older, more confident. His name opens doors. His influence silences whispers. Beside him, she suddenly stops being dangerous and becomes respectable. The world sighs with relief. Finally, everything is back in order. The wedding is perceived almost as rehabilitation. They place her back into a frame, a golden, luxurious frame, but still a frame. The first months are intoxicating. Comfort works like anesthesia. When everything is safe, the mind falls asleep. It feels as though life has stopped fighting her at last. They present her as a trophy, as confirmation of status, and she agrees, because she is exhausted from living in a state of war. But the war has not ended. It has simply moved inside. At receptions and dinners, the mechanics set in. The same faces, the same phrases, conversations that dance around anything real. They appreciate her, but they do not hear her. They love her, but they do not see her. And soon it becomes clear. They expect not growth from her, but silence. They want her not to ask questions. not to spoil the atmosphere, to remain a beautiful sculpture in expensive interiors. For a person of the stage, this is a slow death. The most frightening part becomes what she begins to hear in the evenings. Behind closed doors, in half-tones, politics filled with too much enthusiasm and too little doubt. Ideas that send a chill down her spine. Certainty in the right to decide who deserves a future. She tries not to interfere. She convinces herself that it is not her business, that she is merely a wife. But her inner ear is trained now. She senses falsehood as sharply as she once sensed bad acting on stage. And one day she realizes she is not just in a cage, she is on the wrong side. This realization destroys comfort faster than any scandal. Luxury begins to nauseate her. Silence becomes threatening. Care becomes suspicious. And then, for the first time, she seriously considers the impossible. Escape. We often imagine that an escape is a sudden decision. One evening, one clear thought, one sharp turn of fate. But in reality, it is different. An escape begins long before a person takes the first step. It begins in the body. At first, she stops sleeping peacefully. Her sleep tears apart like a poorly edited film. Upon waking, she cannot immediately understand where she is. Her heart beats too fast for a room in which everything is supposedly safe. She catches herself listening, not to sounds, but to the pauses between them. Silence no longer relaxes, silence watches. She laughs less and less. She chooses solitude more and more often. But solitude here is an illusion. Someone is always near. Servants, security, people whose purpose is to care for her, but who in reality record her presence. Care slowly becomes regulation. And here is what is important to understand. Fear does not come when someone locks you in. Fear comes when you suddenly realize that you do not even know whether you are locked in at all. When the possibility of leaving becomes theoretical. She begins to notice small things, the change of personnel, questions asked too innocently, routes that suddenly become inconvenient, conversations that fall silent when she enters the room. This is not paranoia, it is intuition, sharpened by years on stage where falsehood is sensed instantly. And at the same time, resolve begins to grow, very quietly, very coldly. She has no illusions. She understands. If the attempt fails, there will be no second chance. There will be no debate about scandal. There will be no forgiveness. Everything will end entirely and quickly. Therefore, every step must be exact, without emotion, without hesitation. In her mind, escape does not look like the movies. It looks like an accounting ledger. Who is where? When? What can go wrong? What can be lost? What must be taken to avoid dying within a week? And the hardest part is not fear, but the necessity of appearing normal, smiling, being present, playing the role of the contented hostess. Because suspicion is a signal. The night is chosen not romantically, but pragmatically, when everyone is certain they know her routine, when no one expects improvisation. The pills are not an act of despair, but a calculation. She does not want to cause harm. She needs time, several hours of advantage, and that is why her hands tremble, not from pity, but from responsibility. Because there is no turning back, even in this gesture. The mirror that night is especially honest. It does not lie. It reflects not a femme fatale, not a socialite, not a movie star. It shows a human being who desperately wants to live. Everything else is secondary. The unfamiliar dress hangs awkwardly on her. It does not emphasize her figure. It does not signal status. It erases her, makes her ordinary. And in that, there is a strange relief. She leaves without music. There is no climax. Only the sound of her own footsteps and the hope that the world will not notice. And the world, surprisingly, does not collapse. It simply continues. The first breath outside is almost painful. The air feels too real, too sharp. Freedom begins not with exhilaration, but with shock. She does not look back. That is important. The one who looks back is already doubting. Everything that follows happens in a state between dream and wakefulness. The road, strange faces, a name spoken in a whisper, money that suddenly becomes not a symbol of power, but a tool for survival. London passes through her as a gray blur. The city promises nothing, and in that lies its honesty. Here she is, neither a queen nor a fugitive, simply a woman among many, too many to draw attention. And then, the ship. Its scale calms her. A machine larger than human passions. It does not ask questions. It does not know her story. It simply moves forward. The water erases the past, slowly but inevitably. On the deck, she allows herself, for the first time, to stop. Not to think, simply to stop. The wind does not comfort, but it grounds her. She is alive. That is a fact. All other roles are cancelled. And in that moment, an opportunity appears. Not as a miracle, as a business proposition. A man who can see destinies as coldly as others count numbers. He asks no unnecessary questions. He understands the essential. The past is a risk. The present is potential. The future is a brand. The contract sounds almost impersonal. A new name, a new beginning. The old life must be left behind the ship's wake. Not discussed, not remembered, not returned to, she agrees quickly. Because now she can sense falsehood. And here, there is none. This is an honest transaction. Meanwhile, the sea continues its work. And when new land appears on the horizon, she already knows. The woman she once was no longer exists. There is only the one she has yet to become. Hollywood does not resemble a city. It resembles a mechanism. People do not live here. They are produced. Images, illusions, desires. Everything turns, hums, demands fuel. And its fuel is most often human beings. Her new name is spoken easily. It carries no weight of the past. No troubling associations. No whispering gossip. A clean page. And that is exactly why they love it here. She is introduced not as a runaway, not as a scandal, but as a discovery. A fortunate combination of circumstances and appearance. An opportunity. Her first meetings leave her unsettled. People smile too widely, look too intently, as though calculating instantly how much she might be worth. Their questions sound simple, but each one is a test. How obedient she is. How manageable her ambitions are. How far one can go without encountering resistance. And she passes these tests carefully, without breaking, but without dissolving either. The camera once again becomes her ally. Here she is not required to explain anything, only to be present. And this brings back a forgotten feeling. She is once again in her rightful place. The light does not blind, it defines. The lens captures not only beauty, but the inner discipline of a person who has lived through too much to play carelessly. Roles come one after another. The stories differ, but each contains a shade of her own womanhood. A little of the runaway, a little of the observer, a little of the one who knows that behind every luxury lies its reverse side. The audience falls in love instantly. Hollywood loves labels, and hers appears quickly, untouchable, cold, perfect, a dream on screen. No one asks who she is outside the frame. No one needs to. Illusion works better than truth, but the truth, behind the scenes, looks different. Contracts dictate not only her schedule, but her life. What to wear, whom to appear with, when to smile, when to disappear. Her freedom begins once again to grow conditions, simply more glamorous ones than before. She recognizes this scent, the scent of a cage disguised as success. But now she is wiser, more cautious. She does not tear at the bars, does not protest aloud. She observes, she remembers, she draws conclusions. And that is what allows her to survive where others break. At night, when applause dies, she is left alone with her thoughts. Newspapers deliver news from the other side of the ocean, photographs that chill her fingers, names she knows all too well. The world she escaped continues to collapse. Her comfort is an illusion, paid for with luck and discipline. She understands this clearly, and for that reason, she cannot simply enjoy it. The hardest feeling is helplessness. When you have a voice but no one asks what you want to say. When people applaud you but do not hear you. And so she returns to what has always saved her. To thinking, to silence, to work. But a different kind of work now. She recalls conversations she once ignored. Notes, phrases, terms, the war, terrifying, abstract, suddenly acquires structure, frequencies, transmissions, interference. What once seemed like background noise from someone else's life now becomes a task. She does not think of heroism. She does not think of glory at all. For her, this is an attempt to regain a sense of influence, to prove to herself that she is not only an image. Paper lies on the table at night. The pencil moves slowly but steadily. She is not an engineer, and therefore sees differently, freshly, naively, and precisely because of that, accurately. The music in her mind helps where formulas fall silent. Rhythm, picking, shifts in tone. If a signal is a melody, why should it not be able to slip away? She works stubbornly, hours dissolve, and the further she goes, the clearer the feeling becomes. This matters. That could save lives. Not in a film, in reality. When she finally decides to bring her idea to people, she is not expecting a miracle. She simply takes a step. Because if not now, then never. And here the world shows its true face. She enters rooms that smell of paper, metal, and the confidence of men who make decisions. Everything works simply here. Some speak. Others listen. She is expected to belong by default to the second group. They greet her correctly, even politely. But within their politeness, there is no interest, only patience. The sort shown to a child who has chosen to discuss complicated matters. She explains slowly, without pressure, not to win but to be clear. She speaks of chaos as a system, of shifting frequencies as a way to preserve a voice in a world of noise, of how the enemy listens always but does not understand everything. And that in this, there is opportunity. Some nod, some take notes, someone smiles, too softly. The questions sound proper, but empty, not meant for understanding, but for procedure. They already know how this will end, because there is an unwritten rule. If an idea is good, it must come from the right person, in the right suit, with the right biography. And she is not of their system. She is a malfunction. They listen to her not as a thinker, but as a curiosity. A beautiful exception one can acknowledge and file away. The documents are accepted, the patents registered. Everything is orderly, everything is correct, and everything goes past her. Her idea is not criticized, and that is the worst sign of all. They criticize what is dangerous, Her idea is simply set aside, in a drawer, where things wait for later, where later almost never comes. She walks out into the street and feels a strange emptiness, not defeat, disappointment, because she was not wrong. She knows this with her body, her intuition, the same inner hearing that never failed her on stage. But the world is not obligated to trust the intuition of a woman too beautiful to be taken seriously. And that is the most painful part. Not the refusal, but the reason for the refusal. She returns to her familiar role. The light, the camera, the costumes, the magazines, the men who look at her with the same desire as before. The irony is that here they listen to her willingly, because she says nothing important. Each day on set is a polished ritual. She knows when to smile, when to look away, when to give the audience exactly what they expect, and she does it without error, professionally, coldly, but inside her, a quiet irritation grows, from the feeling of futility, from the thought that she could have done more, that the world chose not to listen precisely when it needed to. Years pass. Youth slips away unnoticed, not as a tragedy, but as a change of light in a room. One day you simply see yourself differently. The camera still flatters, but the magic now requires effort. And effort humiliates, attempts to hold on end in exhaustion. At some point she understands clearly, only one thing is worse than aging, attempting to outplay it. And she makes a decision rare for a world built on illusion. She leaves. No scenes, no loud announcements. She simply stops being where people expect only her past. She chooses silence, not as punishment, but as a form of honesty with herself. Now she has no schedule, no audience. The house becomes a place of peace, filled with air and time. She reflects again, but without the hope of being heard. And this is precisely what frees her. She considers her life complete. Not easy, but real. It contained everything: love, escape, fear, exhilaration, solitude, and a thought that remained only a thought. She almost forgets it. Almost. Silence lasts long. She does not notice as a year passes, then another. Life becomes even, almost transparent. No climaxes, no collapses. She no longer has anything to prove, and that is her rare privilege. Sometimes she reads, sometimes she listens to music, and finds herself noticing not melody, but structure, rhythm, repetition, disruptions. The world still speaks in the language of patterns. It simply no longer demands an answer from her. And that is why the moment of recognition comes unexpectedly. Not a letter, not an award, a random article, a few lines, phrases suspiciously familiar. She rereads a paragraph, then again. And with each reading, a long-lost feeling rises within, a quiet, careful joy of understanding. The principle works, not under her name, not with gratitude, not with recognition, but it works. The signal holds. The transmission slips past the enemy. The music, scattered into chaos, assembles into meaning for those who know the key. Imagine that feeling. Not triumph, not revenge, a deep relief. The world does not need to remember who invented the way to speak through noise. What matters is that it can now speak. Later come formalities, belated articles, hesitant comments. Scientists begin to mention her name cautiously, as if afraid to disturb the past, as if apologizing, silently. She accepts it calmly, almost with humor. In time is in time. Everything else is human fuss. Far more important is something else. She realizes she lived not a role, but a life. Fully. Without saving feelings, without denying herself. And if she had to go through it all again, she would not choose differently. Because it is choices, not awards, that make a person whole. She loved, to the point of losing balance, to foolishness, to pain, and she never considered it a mistake. Because the fear of living is more dangerous than the fear of losing. Her passing is not accompanied by thunder. Everything happens as quietly as the last years of her life, without an audience, without pathos. The circle closes where it once began. Her ashes return to her homeland, to the soil where she was first taught to be proper. But she had long transcended those boundaries. And now, the most important moment. Each time you pick up your telephone, when a message reaches a place where once there was only noise, when a voice travels across distance and interference, remember. Remember the woman from whom the world expected only beauty, and who turned out to be wiser than the time in which she lived. Hedy Lamarr. Give this story a like if it speaks to you, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click that damn notification bell so you do not miss a single one of my videos. Write to me about anything I might have gotten wrong, anything that seems unclear, or anything you disagree with. And by the way, what do you think about this story?